try and do this every once in a while. I'm going to pop in and do one of these podcasts myself and just talk about some of the things that have helped me on my journey and helped me to overcome some of my own personal fears and demons. So sit back and relax, and I hope you enjoy this journey. You know, growing up, I grew up in that smaller, lower middle class family. To kind of give you an idea and set the tone for this, is I can remember my mom when I was less than 10 years old, working in a factory for a company called Lee Jeans. At the same time she's working in a factory, she's also working at McDonald's. So she's working two jobs to help make ends meet. My dad at the time was an over-the-road trucker. So he was constantly gone doing trips all across the U.S., delivering goods in the back of a semi. Never really thought we were poor because I was the youngest of the family. You know, and I know I got, a lot of hand-me-down clothes and things from my older brother. I still got more than my other two brothers did, both my older brothers. And as I grew up, I know there was one incident where somebody in the cafeteria called me poor, and I remember I chunked his milk across the cafeteria. Now, this is all before I'm 10 years old, right? But I never had that thought process that I was poor. And it was around 11 years old where my dad decided we were going to make a family decision to move to Texas. And I went from a very small town and a lot of outside influences to moving to Texas to start over. And I think a lot of people do that, and that's going to be the point of this entire podcast, is the whole thought of starting over. And here's the interesting thing. That move to Texas for me was what I believe taught me or made me think that sometimes you just got to get away, a.k.a. run from your problems. And here's what I mean. When we made the move from Kansas to Texas, it was a tough move on the family. My brother was going into his senior year. All of our friends were there in Kansas. All relationships were there, but we all kind of knew we needed this new life. My parents tell it all the time that, because of my brother pretty much paid for the entire move so our family could do it. So in my head, my brother was, this hero figure of the family, even though I didn't think about it 2 years later. But because of that move to Texas and that transition for the entire family, and where it ultimately left our life so much better off, to where we didn't go to middle class, we kind of went one step above. I can't say finances were great, but things started happening and figure it out. Mom got a job with benefits and working as a receptionist and, getting, upgraded as an administrative assistant for a very large company. Dad was taking through-the-mail electronics classes. He was bettering himself. He landed a job with Xerox as a technician. And both of those two things happened once we moved to Texas. And, Mom, in one form or fashion, stayed with that company she was with for, 20 years probably. She only worked with it was two different companies she really worked for in that time, and Mom's probably going to correct me because it may have been three, but two companies, that she worked for in that time. But it was the same people. They all kind of transitioned together, and one opened her own practice, and Mom went to work for her there. So, she was with these people for years. They became family. We got so close with some of them. Dad worked for Xerox for 16, going on, I think, 18 years before he retired. So this whole move to Texas completely transformed. It really set for success we had never experienced or known. I truly believe because of how awesome that experience turned out, I learned at an early age that if you will leave whatever the shit is going on in your life, that things will get better. And I really practiced this a lot later in my life. When we moved to Texas, I'm 11 years old when we get here. I'm in hand-me-down clothes from my brothers, and I go into 7th grade. Now, picture this. I'm a farm kid, grew up on a, 500-acre, farm that we didn't own the land or anything else. We rented a house on in Kansas. My class when I left was like 28 students. A graduating class was like 22 students. And now I'm in Texas where the average class size is 20 students, 25 students per class. The class size is hundreds of kids. I was an outcast, man. I did not really fit in starting off, but I didn't understand that I didn't fit in. So, Dad always had this rule growing up that as you're growing up, you've got to be a part of something, whether it's sports, whether it's something. I tried football, tried, the baseball thing. All of that shit sucked because I wasn't athletic. I wasn't a sports guy. And put on top of it that I couldn't keep my grades to any sort of level that would allow me to play the sports to make the friends. I mean, I literally got assigned to a group called the Flunkies. Yeah, that's the Flunkies, which means we were the jackasses that didn't have good enough grades to be able to play on teams. So we were still part of the athletic program, but we weren't even allowed to really practice, shoot up, do anything. We were flunkies. And, I pretty much owned that. Let that get me down, but I fully embrace it. I mean, if you're going to call me a freaking flunky, then fuck, I'm going to be a flunky. And I think that was part of my decline is I know as growing up in Kansas, teachers and things were already starting to say, hey, Donnie's getting a reputation for himself. He's heading down a bad path, yada, yada, yada. So by the time I got to Texas, and now I'm a flunky as labeled by society and teachers and the principals in the schools, well, fuck it. I'm just going to be that, right? I'm just going to be that flunky kid. Who gives a shit? So that's when fighting started happening, and that's when I started to rebel against the family. I never thought about it till later years, but in my head, if I could just get away from it all, I could start over, right? That's what the family did. When shit's going the wrong direction, you pack up everything, you get the hell out, and you start over. All through high school, I was always looking for these escapes. I was always looking for these outs, these places where I could just get away from everything. And I found a lot of different outlets. I mean, from a stunt in church to cigarettes to alcohol to all kinds of craziness to try and get out of it. And I kept finding myself around other outcasts, if you will. Now, some of these guys are still great friends of mine, but I still found myself kind of in this outcast crowd. I didn't get along with my peers. I always thought it was because I couldn't relate. The truth of the matter was it wasn't that I couldn't relate. I was always worried what others would think about me, so I would never step up and put myself in a situation to, be part of the cool crowd or anything else. I was a flunky. When I go through my high school experience, high school was shit, and if you've ever heard any of my things before, I'll tell you, teachers, were telling me, Donnie, we're passing you on because we don't want you back the next year. I wasn't passing. I had one, English teacher give me an A because I talked to her. Not because I was good in English. I still suck in English. But because I would laugh at her stupid jokes and talk. I don't remember ever turning an assignment in that damn class, but she gave me an A. Between that one class, Miss White, who was my favorite teacher later on, helping me get to pre-algebra by my senior year, to put it in perspective, and my art teacher, I failed at everything else. I mean, I literally had 2 freshman years because my grades were so bad. And then all the way up, I graduated with like a 2.1 GPA. I think that's like scraping the bottom of the shit pan to be able to graduate. And I really think the only reason I was able to is because I had jumped into co-op, which was this work school thing where I could go get a job half the time or half a day and then go to school a half a day. So I could get away from all this shit. And that may have been my first escapism, was I could get away from all these school people and go hang out with adults in career fields. And the career fields, to put it in perspective, were Taco Bell, Taco Bueno, Dairy Queen. I had a stunt at a daycare. I worked in a bakery. So when I say adults, they weren't mentors as I went through my life, but they were people that were older than me that I could talk to that weren't the shitty people at school that I couldn't get along with. I was a flunky. When I signed up to go into the Marine Corps, I did it for really a couple of reasons. And the first reason was my oldest brother had did it. He was that hero early on in our family that allowed us to make the move from Kansas to Texas. And he'd done it. And because he did it, that should be where I go, because I had no freaking clue what the hell I should do with my life. If that's going to be the case, if that's going to be, the thing, I'm going to go. But I also did it because it got me able to pack it all up and get away. I could get away from bad choices that I'd made in my life and the bad direction I was heading, from stealing hood ornaments and car stereos and some of the things that I had gotten into, and especially later in my high school year. It got me to pack up that shit life and go someplace else. So I go off to the Marine Corps, hanging out with a bunch of other flunkies. Right? When I get to the Marine Corps, what I quickly realized is all these other assholes that are around with me, they were the ones that had no directions in their life, I mean, they came from the same bottom of the shit can that I came from. Teachers didn't like them. They were fighting in schools, and they were rough and tumbly. They were drinkers. They were partiers. I found some of my people, and I found some of the people that I could relate to. But the culture in the Marine Corps is not conducive for my personality of doing my own thing. I flat out hate somebody telling me what to do. If somebody ever walks up and approaches me and says, "Hey, you do this," my hackles go up. Because I'm like, who the fuck are you? Don't tell me what to do. You need me to do something, ask. The Marine Corps is definitely a no-ask zone. You're told how to eat, drink, shit, everything else on a regular basis. Now, there are some good things about the Marine Corps. Don't let me come across like I'm bashing the Marine Corps. But the lifestyle and the culture of the Marine Corps wasn't a fit for me. But it allowed me to escape that high school shit lifestyle that I was heading down. So I do my 4 years in the Marine Corps, right, and I come back home, right? I don't like the Marine Corps. I could re-up and do another 4 years, or I can do what I know, which is pack all my shit up and come home. Because obviously if I come home, my friends have grown up, my life's grown up, I've grown up. There's no way I can head down the shit path that I was heading in the first place. The funny thing about that drive home is my dad flew out to North Carolina to help me with the drive home, and I had a Ford Ranger that some buddies of mine had torn the engine apart because it wasn't running. There was some problems with it. So I had this Ford Ranger with an engine in pieces that I had to get back to the States. Yeah, we took this Ford Ranger and loaded it in the back of a Penske truck. And literally had to take the bumpers off this damn thing so the truck would fit in there. And so we put this truck in the back of this Penske truck, and then Dad and I drive 22 hours straight from North Carolina back to Texas, and then unload this thing. And it was crazy is that truck was up against the back wall of this Penske, so every time I hit the brakes, the whole back wall of this damn truck would wobble back and forth and scare the shit out of both Dad and I. And dude, if we would have had one wreck, I mean, we would have rear-ended somebody, that truck would have came through the back wall, and we would have both been dead. I mean, it was a stupid drive, stupid move, but we got the truck home. So now I'm home, expecting that this is my newest escape. This is my getaway. This is my chance to get away from it all. And what happens? I hung out with some friends that I, grew up with, and we found the shit. And what I mean we found the shit is I couldn't find jobs anywhere. So I was working with, one of my best friends and his dad doing HVAC services. And dude, it's hot. It's nasty work. I hated it. And the summer sucked. But we'd get off work every day and we'd head to the bar. And we'd drink our faces off. I mean, literally drink our faces off. We would drink all through the night, get flippin' plowed, and then we'd get up and do it. And during the summer, you're doing this almost 7 days a week. I remember my boss at the time, that dude used to just bring me beer in the middle of the day, call up where you at, and you'd be crawling in an attic or whatever else, and he'd swing by, drop a case of beer off, and just say, hey, left a case of beer in your truck, catch up with me later. So now you're just getting hammered as you're doing your job, and then you'll drink your face off in the afternoon and drink through the night, which led me to get into a rough lifestyle. I started, from drinking to drugs again and getting heavy into marijuana and coke and other crazy shit in my life. I was not heading for great pastures. So I got an opportunity. After doing this for a year or two, I got an opportunity to move to St. Louis and take a career out there. Once again, when life's dealing you a shit sandwich, you pack up all your shit and you get out and you change the scenery. So I moved out to St. Louis. I'm living in St. Louis. I got a job working at a very large corporate firm, and I'm starting to live what at that time I thought success was, of working in the skyscraper building. I say that this was a 3-story building, but for me it felt like big corporate America type thing, right? I'm starting off working in this position, and I ended up meeting a couple of employees at this company. Let's just say they like to party. I find myself, I escaped all the alcohol and the drugs and the lifestyle, and now I'm in St. Louis trying to live out my idea of success in the corporate America, and I'm back to drinking my face off and doing drugs, and I'm actually now doing more drugs than I'd ever done in my life. I'm doing drugs like it's eating candy from a candy store. I mean, it's just retarded. I'm doing things to party all night, come home, smoke a joint so I can sleep, and then get up and go to work. I mean, it was insane. All the while trying to perfect this image of I'm Mr. Corporate America. And I had some great successes in that company. That's for another episode. But I did some really cool things happened on that journey. But that lifestyle kept compounding and compounding and compounding. And what do? When the shit gets stacked up, you pack up everything and you move. So I came back home again. It's around this time that I pack up everything and I come home that I start thinking that every time I do this, that every time when I think shit's going south, every time I do this, there's a common denominator. And I originally remember thinking that the common denominator was the alcohol and the drugs. And then that didn't feel right. So then the common denominator was I was finding a certain type of people. Well, that didn't feel right. Well, dumbass, it didn't dawn on me till I realized I was the common denominator. I was that thing that was everywhere I went. I couldn't escape me. I couldn't run away from me. I couldn't pack up me and take it somewhere else. It belongs to me. I mean, it's my person. And it was interesting as I started making that realization. About the time I really got into this self-development world and finally started understanding that you never stop learning. You never stop growing. So you better be investing in yourself, or other influences are going to be investing in you. So once I realized that I could not run away from me, I went to work on me. And here's the interesting thing is I started reading books, and I started going to seminars, and I started going to events, and I started to grow myself. The world started growing up to meet me. And here's the interesting thing. Once I started getting my head right and realizing things like I was good enough, I could chase my own journey. I could do more, be better, and work on me. Shit started happening. Careers opened up for me, and I started becoming somebody. Now look, I get it. We're all somebody, right? We're all somebody to somebody. But I started getting known. I started getting a little bit of a reputation of a networker, a successful guy, a sales guy, and I started down this whole path of something more and something greater than myself. And as I began to go down that path, the world started opening up, and I really started learning that the more I put myself out there, the more that I injected in my life from a positive perspective, the better my life got. I mean, it was during the beginning of that time that I met my wife. I'd gotten myself to that point where I was stable enough that I could actually take on a spouse, which was a beautiful thing because I was finally ready to grow up. She was great for me because she was pulling me out of the partying lifestyle, and she gave me an excuse to bet on me, which was awesome. Through my careers, I got better at getting out of my own way and going for it, and start doing the things that scared the pure living shit out of me, and start doing the things that freaked me out, and life got a little bit simpler, and life got a little bit better. And it's all because I started working on me and started understanding that I could not escape me. I am me. And that's a beautiful thing. To where I came up with the entire philosophy is if you're just yourself, the world will show up to meet you. If you're just yourself, your authentic, true self, the world will welcome you with open arms. And it's not everybody, but your people will come to the table. And when I say your people, I don't mean colors, race, gender. I mean your people. The people that like the same freaky shit that you like. You're in the theater, your theater people will show up. You're into music, your music people will show up. You're into Renaissance fairs, Renaissance people will show up. You're into self-help and achievement. Self-help and achievement people will show up. You're into investing people will show up. When you start embracing what you love and embracing who you are, your crazy best people come out and come with you. And it's amazing when you find your tribe of people because you're being authentic and true to yourself. say, here world, this is me, that's when life gets fun. See guys, once I realized I could not run from me, then life got cool. And I attribute a lot of that, the successes I've had in life is because I've been my authentic, genuine self. And I've put that out there in a real world and space. So I hope as you go through your day, taking it from a lesson from me that you can't run away from it. You can't get away from it. You have to. You must embrace it. And embrace you. Because every night you go to bed with yourself. Every morning you wake up with yourself. And you spend the most time with yourself. So you better start liking the you that is you and unleash that badass on the world. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. You really want to unleash your inner badass? Then start loving everything about you and taking on life by doing the things you love. Run like hell, guys. Talk to you soon. Wow, thank you for listening to this episode. I really enjoyed doing it. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Do me a favor, guys, and comment, share. Let me know what you thought of this episode. And as always, run like hell.